everybody out there that has seen some of our SIPS episodes before or has caught us in the past, we started doing these right after COVID, right after the shutdown. So we're almost at our year anniversary of bringing these to you monthly. And we started with talking about how COVID's affected us. But right now I got Maureen on, and we're going to take it back to the basics. I want to know real estate. Everybody knows right now that the market's hot. Houses are flying off the shelves at thousands more than they were just a year ago. So Maureen, just tell us what you see right now. Why is real estate so sexy right now?
We could qualify it right now, or we could say for the last, in my career, 13 years, but I even think prior to then, I think back to the Rockefellers, the Mellons, the Morgans, the Rothschilds, right? They own huge portfolios of real estate that they still hold today, right? So real estate has been tried and true for centuries. In our context, though, for the last 13 years, it's been sexy. Why? I will just share with you, there's probably a lot of the listeners here are on this call or will tune in later because of 5 basic reasons. In 13 years, I can drill down why real estate is sexy for the investor. And it comes down to what their main goals are. Number 1, they want to get out of their jobs, right? They want to get out of the rat race. They hate their jobs. They hate their boss. I love you, by the way, so I want to stay. But they want to find a way to get out of their job. So they've got to find streams of income to be able to replace their active income so they can pay their bills and not have to go to work. So that's number 1. Number 2, they love to have investors that love their jobs, right? They don't want to leave, but they just want to supplement their retirement, maybe to retire sooner so they can spend more time with family. Number 3, they want to pay for college for kids, right? I don't even know what the expense is going to be when my 3 kids go to school. I'm going to have 2 in at the same time. I'm telling you, my 529 account at its meager interest rate earnings from the stock market is not going to cut the mustard when it comes to a 4-year university. So my investment strategy was to invest in real estate properties, $100,000 property, pay it off in 15 years, sell it, and now you've got college tuition paid for, right? So that's another reason that investors find us. 4th reason is reduce taxes, right? Our biggest bill in our whole lifetime is our tax bill. So we have to find legitimate ways to reduce it. And owning hard assets is a way to do that. A lot of investors know that. And then the last one that I have found in my 13 years of research is there are parents out there that have young kids, and they even have there's families that are even taking care of their elderly parents, and they need care, they need money for long-term care, right? And I've got several families that I work with, several parents that I work with who that's exactly what they're doing. They want streams of income set up so that they can take care of their kids. So I will tell you everyone that comes to a phone call to our company is they just want to do good and do right by their families and take care of people. That's it.
That is hands down the biggest motivator. I mean, we see that time and time again. People want to set themselves up so their children don't have to take care of them. They want to or set their children up. So paying for college, retiring early, getting out of your current job. Everybody at Spartan Invest, please don't start taking notes on how to get out of your job. Reduce taxes and setting up your children for success, or in the event that they can't take care of themselves, or your parents. So, like I said, we're getting back to the basic. And I know you've talked about this a lot, but it's such a hot topic right now that how does real estate do that? Like if somebody walks up to you and it's like, hey, do you want to retire early and quit your job and, or do all of these things? I'm going to hang up on them, or, I'm not going to take the call or anything like that. So how does real estate do all of those things, or can do all of those things?
So, real estate pays us in 5 ways, right? And I think a lot of investors, we all focus on the cash flow because that's what comes in every single month. We see our bank accounts increase because the debt's paid, the cash flow's there. And we're like, yes, this thing is beautiful. we all get focused on that, but there's other ways that real estate pays us. And that's why it's been such a wealth builder for centuries. And that's why people they buy hard assets, they hold on to the hard assets, because hard assets, when you invest in them, do three things. They reduce your tax liability, they produce cash flow, and they appreciate in value. These are the three core things that you need in order to build wealth and beat inflation. So when you look at the 5 ways, everyone knows cash flow, right? It's like it's money coming in after all the debt expenses are paid. Perfect. Then you've got appreciation, depreciation, loan pay down, and the hedge against inflation. And what I have found, Lindsay, is that I get a lot of mileage just spending some time with each individual investor that I talk with on the first call. Number one, I find out their why, right? Why are you investing in real estate? I ask that question, and that's the reason why I know those top 5 answers, because it's all the same, right? Number 2, I then take the time and I say, has anyone ever showed you the rate of return, like how to calculate the overall rate of return for your real estate portfolio, or even just one property when you start out? And most of them don't. Like, I love that they're honest. They go, yeah, no one's ever showed me. Will you? And so I got to give Keith Weinhold a shout out, because he's the one that just made it really simple for me. So I love you, Keith, if you're watching. Get Rich Education Podcast is thebomb.com. So you got to tune into that. But what you see is rate of return is just a very simple formula of profit divided by equity, right? And you take the 5 ways that real estate pays you, and let's take appreciation, for example, right? So
wait, are we about to go through the?
Do you want to? Should we do it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's break it down. Okay. I want anybody out there that's listening, or that we can send this to later, to have that knowledge to go, okay, so I can take the appreciation, I can take the cash flow. Let's break it down. Maureen, do your thing.
All right, let's do it. All right, so if you're listening, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, pencil, I don't care. Let's do this, because I tell you, my investors, they love this. And at the very end, they go, no one's ever showed this to me. This is so valuable. I learned more in this call than I have in all the calls that I've had with other turnkey providers. So thank you so much. So let's jump in. Here we go. On the top of your paper, right, rate of return equals profit divided by equity. And the 5 ways that real estate pays you. Number 1, appreciation, right? I want you to write down $100,000, because that's what we're going to buy today. We're going to buy a $100,000 house, but we're not going to put $100,000 in. We're going to put $20,000 in and have the bank finance the $80K. All right. So our equity in the deal is $20,000. Now, what's our profit? Okay, so let's take a look. Across the United States, the average capital appreciation is 6%. So that means in 12 months, your property goes from 100,000 times 6% makes 106,000. All right, I know you can't answer me, but is that $6,000 profit? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Subtle hint. So what do? You just take the profit, you take it and you plug it into the formula. So our profit 6,000, we divide it by 20,000, and we get a rate of return of, drum roll, 30%. I have this committed to memory, so don't think I'm like a whiz. I've done this many times, so I know. Okay. I do Jersey math, which was avoid calculus at all costs. So, but.
See, and you should have never said anything. Would have been like, man, she's a math genius.
Yeah. I guess I could have had that image, but I'm pretty transparent and truthful. So no, you put dollar signs in front of numbers. I get it. You mix it with like letters and symbols and I'm like scrambled eggs in my brain. So, okay. One thing I forgot to mention though. So, wealth is created by beating inflation. So I don't care what vehicle you choose as an investor to put your capital in, whether it's oil and gas, real estate, commercial, residential, cannabis, cacao, coffee, agriculture, whatever you put your money in, it has got to produce a yield of minimum of 7% or more, right? Inflation is around 6%. Don't believe the government. Sorry if you're listening, any government workers. They say 2.3%, 2.2% is what's projected for 2021. I don't know. Look at your gas prices. Look at your prices of food. Just look around you and see that things are going up greater than that 2% that they're reporting. So in my opinion, I'll just say it that way. In my opinion, you need to have a rate of return minimum 7% or more. Now, you took a little bit of money, your money, you put it in a hard asset, and then 12 months later, that asset appreciated $6,000. And that is the equivalent of a rate of return of 30%. Is 30% beating 7 or 6%? It is. It's kicking its butt, right? So that's only the first way. Let's talk about the other ways that real estate pays us, right? So everybody knows cash flow, right? So cash flow is what you get after all your expenses are paid: maintenance, vacancy, mortgage, life insurance, property management fees. Here we go. We've got some cash flow coming out per month. Now, we have cash flow properties that cash flows anywhere from, call it $200 to $400 a month. Depends on the interest rate you get and the rent we get. But on the cash flow, let's just go minimum. Let's go bare minimum, you guys, right? Let's say your property your property cash flow is $150. $150 times 12 months equals $1,800. That is your profit for the year, right? Okay, so what do? We plug it into the formula. Rate of return equals profit, 1,800 divided by equity, 20,000. And if you guys are using your calculators, which I hope you are, because it's sticky, it sticks more in your brain when you actually do it yourself, then you'll find out that your cash flow rate of return, your cash on cash, 9%, right? Is that beating inflation? Yes. So think about it. Appreciation, 30%, cash flow, 9%. I'm at 39%. I should have your interest because you want to know how there's more. Yes, there's more. So third way that real estate pays you is loan pay down. This is why I love using leverage. So think about it. Let's say we have that same $100,000 house that we bought. We put our $20,000 in. We've got a mortgage debt of $80,000. 12 months from now, do we still owe 80 grand? No, we owe less than that. Probably, let's call it $1,000, right? Because I love the US banking system. I don't know whoever came up with that business model of, hey, let's create a 30-year fixed mortgage note so that we can collect interest for 30 years, but we get all the money, the majority of the money up front. I mean, a great business model, seriously, right? Other countries don't have that. I don't know why they're slow to uptake on that, but they should. Anyway, the point is that the principal reduction in year one is paid by the renter, resident, right? And let's just say that's $1,000, right? Because the mortgage payment is made up of two parts, your principal and your interest. Interest is your only expense. Here you go, Mr. Banker. Thanks for lending me the 80K. Love you to pieces. Let's do it again 10 more times for our golden tickets. And then a year later, we owe 79,000 versus 80. So that means that $1,000 was profit, because that was like the principal payment. It's like putting money back into our own account. So what do? Let's take the 1,000, which is profit, divided by our equity of 20 grand. Lindsay Davis, are you doing the math in your head? If not, I will tell you the answer. It's 5%, right? So that's your rate of return just on the loan pay down. Okay, now tax benefits, number 4. So the fourth way real estate pays you is through the tax benefits of two ways, through depreciation and through 1031 exchanges, which is just a capital gains deferment that you can just not pay the tax and roll it over into additional like-kind properties over and over and over again. And here's a little hint. There is no limit on how many times you can do a 1031 exchange. So you can just keep that money in that pot for generations. Think about it.
What is it called? It's flip till you flop. Is that right? Is that the right saying?
I don't know, but that's a good name of a show. Maybe we should do that. So let's go through that really quickly, right? So what does depreciation look like? I'm going to stick with that same $100,000 door. The IRS basically says, hey, thanks for housing our people. You know, and when you do, you get tax benefits. And you know what? Think about it. It's not just with housing. It's with agriculture. It's with energy development. So, you know, you invest in oil and gas, significant tax breaks in year one. You invest in agriculture, same thing, right? The government says we need help in doing these activities, feeding people, creating domestic energy, housing people. When if you do that, you get to keep more of your money. Just play by our rules. Perfect. I'll do that. So When you, so depreciation is the wear and tear on the house over a 27.5-year period, right? So the government says, hey, land doesn't lose its value. So you can't depreciate that. So we got to just subtract that out of the calculation. Cool, I'll do that. So let's take 100,000 minus, it's usually about 20% of the property value. So you take 100,000, subtract out 20% or 20,000. Now you have a structure valued at 80,000. All you do, guys, is you take the 80,000 divided by 27.5 years. Don't ask me where they came up with that number. I have no idea. I think it's just the, who knows, whatever, just go with it, right? So 27.5 divided by, or 80,000 divided by 27.5 gives you 2909. Is that what you deduct? No, because guess what? Everyone on this call, we all fall into a different marginal tax rate. So you just have to take your tax rate and multiply that by 2909, right? So 2909 times 35%. I didn't do that math in my head. Hold on, people, I'm coming, right? So 2909 divided by, or sorry, 2909 times, I'll just say 35%, 1018, right? 1018. So that means is that profit, because the US government says, here you go, you can keep 1,018 of your own money. We're not going to take it from you because you house some of our people. Awesome. What do? Plug it into the formula. 1018 divided by 20,000, right? Rate of return, profit divided by equity. I'm going to keep saying it. And that comes out to about 5% as well, right? Now, the last way that real estate pays you is not for it's beyond my mathematical scope, right? But basically I can explain it really well. It's called the hedge against inflation. I'm sure you guys have heard that term. How is real estate a good hedge against inflation? And basically it's this, right? So we take out a loan on the property, we have to pay that back. We lock into a 30-year fixed rate at a low interest rate, record lows right now if you've been paying attention. And so you've got this, so your payment stays the same, yet your wages and prices escalate over that same time period that you own that rental property, right? And as you earn more and make more, it's easier to pay back that loan because the banker, he's not that greedy, right? He wants his interest. He wants it for 30 years and he wants it up front, but he's not asking us to pay the loan back in inflation adjusted dollars. He's only asking us to pay it back in nominal dollars, which is the equivalent of about a 3% benefit to a real estate investor. So think about this, guys. Summarize 5 ways. We all focus on cash flow, but that's just one part of investing in real estate. The 5 ways you get paid is through appreciation, 30%. And for those thinkers out there that are going, that sounds too good, Marie, I'm going to push back a little bit. Fine, I'm going to answer your question. Even though I can't hear you asking me it, but I can hear it in my head because I've heard it before 1,000 times, right? So let's say you go, oh, it's only a 3% appreciation in the market. Okay, fine. So your $100,000 property goes from 100,000 to 103,000 in 12 months. That 3,000 is profit. You divide it by the equity of 20 grand. That gives you a 15% rate of return. Are you okay with that? Does 15% beat 7%? All day long, right? So your 30%, let's go back with the bigger number because I like that number better, right? So 30% on depreciation, 9% on cash flow, 5% on, what was that, loan pay down, 5% on depreciation, and 3% on the inflation hedge, and you come up with 51% rate of return on one investment property. Multiply that by 10, by 20. We have some investors that have 600 doors, not all with us. You know, it's people that they're all over the United States, but they are capitalizing on those 5 ways. So when an investor comes to us and they say, I want to pay for care for my mom who's elderly. I want to pay for my disabled kid. I want to pay for college for my kids. I want to get out of my job because I hate my boss. I love my job, but I want to have more money coming in because I know that there's increased expenses as I get older, you know, healthcare, college, etc. So you want to have multiple streams of income to pay for those things, which really is just, they want to take care of their family and their community at large. And real estate is one vehicle to do that. And we just happen to specialize in it.
I completely agree too on the pushback of appreciation, because that's not one thing. If you want to make it specific to where Spartan is, Alabama is not known for having the astronomical appreciation that you see in where you are, Maureen, and we just don't. Now, in the zip codes that we specialize in, obviously in the last 12 months, we've seen quite an increase, but on average, we're more in the 2 to 3%. Over the last like 10 years, that's kind of where we've been. But you know what? Like you said, that's still 15%. Like that's still pretty amazing. So even cutting that in half, and I did the math, even though I've done this exercise with you a bunch, I still did it with you. I still did it because it is so valuable to look at real estate as not just the cash flow cow that you know, hey, we advertise it as that because it is so attractive in that regard, and it provides that stable cash flow is something that not a lot of other investments do provide. So it is a very important aspect of real estate, but it's definitely not the only one, like you said. So I mean, that exercise right there is very powerful if one of your whys is to create passive income for XYZ reason. You know, I completely agree. Thank you so much. I know you do that all the time, but it's a great thing. And like you said, Keith Weinhold, for kind of putting the top 5, he advertises that a lot. Huge shout out to him for that. Okay, so that was a lot. And like I said, real estate, super sexy right now. We have seen a pretty big increase in demand. Not so much yet complete saturation of the market. That's a lot of questions that we field is like, oh, well, is it too saturated? Are there too many investors? Well, you know, there's always a need for housing, right? That's just never going to go away. So market saturation is not really one thing, but right now in the sales world, what would you say is your biggest roadblock? You know, we know it's on interest rates. So what do you see right now as far as roadblocks for investors? If you're like, hey, you know what? All of that stuff Maureen just walked through applies to me. What would you see as a roadblock right now?
So one, helping investors get themselves out of their own way. I'm going to say that, like, I love you guys dearly, but sometimes there's that fear factor of, well, my neighbor says, and that person says, and I always say, don't take advice from broke people. Take advice from people that are doing very well. Change the mindset. There's a shared mindset out there that's very common, that's scarcity based, that, you know, you could be having a cocktail with them, golfing with them, at a spa day with them, at a, you know, kid's sideline, you know, talking to someone on the sideline of your kid's game. And they're like, oh, well, I heard somebody once did that and it was really awful. You know, here's the thing. So mindset is key, number one. So usually the why, that's why I always ask that question, Lindsay, why are you on the phone with me? How did you get here? And it's because they want to do one of those 5 things, right? So then I help them go, okay, let's focus on that. What's your goal? What's your timeline? And how much cash flow do you want per month? And when do you want it? So we work on the mind. I work on the mindset first. That's number 1. One of the roadblocks is just, you know, low inventory. You mentioned that already, right? We have low inventory because of 2 reasons. One, 2020 was a very unexpected, unprecedented year where nobody would have ever predicted that we've been living through a global pandemic. And most people that would have listed their homes in 2020 decided to recant, retract, and hold still, right? So the inventory that we were expecting to come online did not come online. And then you couple that with record low interest rates, and you've got crazy people refinancing. Like, everybody should refinance to get the lower rate because you put more money in your pocket on a monthly basis. You increase your cash flow, right? You lower your interest rate on a $500,000 house from 5% to 3%. That's hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars per year in your pocket. And that also drove first-time home buyers to the market. That drove investors back to refinance or to purchase, refinance their existing to cash out and buy more. So yeah, there's definitely an inventory shortage, and we kind of saw this coming, actually. So we did, and it was one of the reasons why we did choose, well, I remember sitting in that meeting with you about, hey, we should really do new construction. I'm like, are you sure? Should we do that? And you gave me your reasons why. And I was like, okay, the girl knows her stuff. She's following the trends. And so, here we are now with, we do rehabs and we do new construction. But you saw the trend coming with the low housing starts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can't take all my credit, but there was definitely too. So you're talking about a lot of people held properties. We saw that on the Alabama rental property management side, where our renewals increased all of last year. People were just a lot more hesitant to spend money, even though the government's pumping the stimulus and everything into their pockets. They're still kind of a little bit more reserved, not as likely to list their house or move out of a rental property. So we see that on both sides, the interest rates. And then you also have to kind of go back about 10 years to the 08, 09, where your inventory new construction starts dropped dramatically and did not start to pick back up. I mean, they slowly picked back up in 11 and 12, but really did not see the volume that they did in 06, 07 until 2017 was when we really saw new construction inventory. So as our population continues to grow, those houses were not available. For owner occupants. And then you couple that too with COVID, and people are flocking from the highly populated areas. People are like, get me out of New York. I'm going to move to the suburbs. If I've got to work remotely and I'm stuck at my house with my 3 kids, give me some space, please. I feel that in my soul. So we see like several of these factors and kind of all shoved into a short time frame. We've seen that inventory or lack thereof really affect, and that's another reason why we've really started ramping up our new construction. We provided it about 1.5 years ago was when we first rolled it out, and then started a new construction company within the family of companies under Spartan Invest to strictly provide investor clients with brand new turnkey rental properties. Mm-hmm. And you go through the same process that all of our renovated properties go through. So we are constantly trying to ramp that up, and we've seen a lot of demand, and we've seen on both sides, we've seen demand from tenants and investors alike, and that tenants want to move into a brand new home. They're still a little hesitant about purchasing, especially, the millennial generation was the first generation to hold back on jumping into the home buying scene. And the generations after that are the same. So it provides brand new homes for tenants, and then low maintenance and new homes for investor clients wanting to get into real estate. So what are some of the other benefits that you see when you're talking to investors for renovations versus the new construction?
Yeah, well, you've got, I can break it down into like talking to investors that are brand new that have never done this before. And then you've got your experienced investors that own multiple units, multiple doors. Both of them have a very different perspective because one has experience and the other one doesn't have experience. Or this one who doesn't have experience may have talked to someone that has the experience and got really scared. And so they're like, I only want new construction. I want low maintenance. I want low headaches. I'm willing to take a little bit lower rate of return and a little bit lower cash flow compared to some of the older rehab homes, but I'm okay with that because my risk tolerance allows me to go here. And I'm okay with that, right? So we've got a really nice diverse portfolio of offerings where we can offer, rehab properties or brand new construction. It's no secret. I think that when you have a brand new built 2021 brand new built home, that the projected maintenance cost is going to be lower than if you own a 1940 year built house. And yes, we do a really good job in replacing all the large CapEx, the metal roofs with a 40-year warranty that'll last 50 plus years. You've got the new HVAC systems, 15-year manufacturer's warranty, water heater, 10-year manufacturer's warranty. So the large CapEx in the house is under a manufacturer's warranty for at least a decade, right? Does that mean you're going to be maintenance free? No, right? We do upgrade electrical and plumbing to 2017 building code. When we pull permits, that's what's required of us from the city. So we comply. We're the biggest home builder or biggest home buyer in both Huntsville and Birmingham. So we have a really good working relationship with the city inspector's office. And they're very enthusiastic about their job. But I get it. They're trying to protect, people moving into homes that are uninhabitable, unsafe, unstable. And, we're the checks and balances. We want to make sure that we're actually doing a quality renovation. So, I think it's prudent as an investor to have both new construction and rehab properties, because you're going to get higher rate of return, right? And again, think about it. You've got your higher rate of return, higher cash flow, a property that will be stable long-term with a good rate of return, less presumably and probably and very likely less maintenance over time. And the combination of the two is a winning combination. Because again, it's feeding, if like you've got a lot of cash flow, let's say you've got, and this is investors all the time. Let's say they've got 5 rental properties that are rehab. They've got 2 that are new construction. They'll take and they want to pay off the debt service faster. They'll aggregate the cash flow from, let's say the 5 rehabs to pay off the debt on the new faster, because then they'll get more cash flow with their portfolio. And it depends on how old people are too, right? Like if you're, and I wish we had more 20 and 30-year-olds calling us. Like we need to get more messaging out to these millennial types to really focus on their financial future, because they're really not. Because I can tell you in 13 years, it's very rare that I talk to a 20 or 30-year-old. 40, 50, and 60-year-old is a demographic who's going, I'm going to outlive my money. I am fearful of outliving my money, and I still have healthcare and college education to pay for. So, and my single income or my dual income with my spouse is not cutting the mustard, because it's paycheck to paycheck, or it's tight, right? So we've got to get ways to increase cash flow. I think I'm going off on a tangent. I am like, you got to bring me back, Lindsay. Bring me back.
Sorry.
I've only had 2 sips.
Sorry. Yes. Come back. No, I mean, but you hit on the high points of the new construction versus the renovation. It is a lot about risk tolerance, in that the houses that were built in the 60s and 70s are more likely, now they're not all going to have issues. I have rental properties that were built in the 60s and 70s, and I don't have any issues with them. Mm-hmm. I also have I have a couple of new construction homes where I've had HVAC issues because the tenant never changed the filter. So again, like you said, maintenance is not zero maintenance guaranteed across the board. But there is less maintenance, less long-term maintenance on new construction. Then you also have our new construction is, and I can't speak for other turnkey providers, honestly, but our new construction is in better neighborhoods typically. And, we're in more of a B+ when we're building the new construction. So you're getting a little bit higher qualified tenant because of the nicer neighborhood, the increased rent because the new construction as well. And a couple of the negatives too is you've got, lower rate of return. You've got potential HOAs that you have to comply with. If anybody here lives or has a rental property with an HOA, a lot of times they can, just be kill your bottom line with no benefit. So we've all experienced that. But yeah, there's pros and cons, 100% for the new construction and the renovated properties. It really depends on your risk management. We had a really good question, kind of going a little bit back, and then we'll dive a little bit more into Birmingham, or Alabama. But what would you recommend as far as your down payment goes? Is 20, 25%? Does that matter? What are your thoughts?
It does. So I would say this is my coaching and the guidance that I give to any investor that asks you that same question is talk to the lender and ask them what the difference is in their fees, origination costs, between putting 20 or 25% down, right? Because if you put 20% down and they charge you a higher origination, and you could take that same amount and put 25% down, you put more equity into your house for a lower fee, and that you're putting more money into the deal versus paying a fee to a lender that gives you no return, like no benefit. So you just have to ask and you just do it. Go and ask them. If I put 20% down compared to 25%, what is the cost savings to me? You know, get that. And usually the interest rate is lower because they're like, oh, you've got more skin in the game. It's less risky. You're less risky compared to someone who's putting less money down. So we'll give you better terms. So you just have to ask the question. I don't have the answer. Just ask the question to the lender.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and a really good tip too when you're out there talking to lenders and doing your due diligence before you dive into the real estate game, asking that question when you're deciding, hey, what is the difference in the loan origination fee? That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about, hey, back to basics, real estate, just why real estate? And then so let's dive a little bit into why Alabama. And I know we've talked about it a good bit. We've mainly focused on why Alabama through COVID. And we've seen Alabama be extremely resilient. And that's just based on the overall economy that is Alabama. We're not an entertainment state, as much as we like to think how entertaining we are.
We're very hospitable. We're hospitable, but you don't want to come sip martinis by a pool.
Right. We are going to have the best manners and we're going to be polite, but our economy is not driven by tourism and entertainment. It's just not. It's manufacturing and high-end blue-collar jobs. So that is one thing that we've seen. So through COVID per se, but tell us why Alabama in regards to real estate investing, just in general, you know, just big picture outside of COVID, why would people invest in Alabama?
It really is very simple. As climate plays a big role. I mean, I can say, kind of look at what's happening to the snow winter storms in Texas, right? People are dealing with burst pipes, frozen pipes. There are some big expenses that are happening right now in the Northeast. I don't invest personally in the Northeast. I know you don't either, because you have to deal with snow, sleet, and then you're dealing with a lot of maintenance on the exterior just because of the weather conditions. So moderate climate, number one. Number two, business-friendly tax environment. It's easy to start businesses in Birmingham. Think about trying to start a new tech company in Silicon Valley, where the average price point of a starter home is $1 million. Imagine trying to get new recruits to live and find housing in that area, plus the commercial space you would need to start up your new tech company. Whereas we've got an entire technology district called the Innovation Depot, what is being renamed Railroad something. Do you remember Railroad?
I don't recall what it is. No, as of right now, it's still Innovation Depot, but I did see it was changing. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it's going to change. So so climate, moderate climate. Oh, there's today's picture. I love it. And so just so you guys know what you're looking at, this is a 180,000 square foot building that houses over 100 tech startup companies. You have to apply, you have to be accepted. You get $50,000 of grant money. You get coaching, mentoring on marketing, product development. It's all cross collaboration between other tech minds, so that, and basically the focus of the state, local government officials is they want the next big tech giant to come out of Alabama. And they're really encouraging those types of technology companies to come because it's business friendly, it's business tax friendly, it's low affordability. That's the other. So you're asking me why Alabama. Let me kind of try to summarize it, because I know I jump all over the place. It's just the way that my mind's wired. Sorry, people. So moderate climate, presumably low maintenance over time on the exterior of the property. Two, because we're not shoveling any snow or anything here. Affordability, right? The price point to get into a property. I mean, I wanted to go back to even the new construction. You can buy a brand new home in Birmingham, Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, soon to be Huntsville, Alabama, and Danville, right outside Huntsville and Danville, for $170,000 to $200,000. This is a 1,200 to 1,700 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car attached garage. People that in New York and California are laughing at that right now. Like that's an impossibility. It's an improbability. It is exactly what is happening in our market. So affordability, which means low barrier of entry. right? Not even just for us as investors, but for the renters, right? If you've got a low cost of living, your likelihood of staying put for a longer period of time because you can afford, food, gas, a quality life, right? Because you're not paying $3,000 in rent for a 900 square foot space in New York, which I think, by the way, I've heard there's 17,000 vacant units in New York City, which just tells you, which is not normal, right? But we're not in normal circumstances because people are flocking towards space because they value space more. And we just happen to be, the company that's in Birmingham, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, where there's a lot of space, we're not living on top of each other. So let me summarize it quickly, right? So why Alabama? Great climate, affordability, so easier to just access to get into building a portfolio of properties, a business-friendly tax environment. And guess what? When you have companies, and this is exactly what our state local government officials have been in vigorous pursuit of and have been very successful. The auto manufacturing industry is a really good example of going overseas, getting these Toyota, Mazda, Honda, Hyundai, Mercedes-Benz to open up billion-dollar manufacturing plants that hire not hundreds, but thousands of local people. And when you have thousands employed, you're creating jobs that they make money. The money goes back into the economy. It helps those business vendors pay, or it helps those business owners pay the vendors, and it continues to grow and the standard of living increases. And when you see that happening, you're so seeing that it's exploding in Huntsville. It's ridiculous in Huntsville. It's really good in Birmingham, Alabama too. And it's because of their focus.
Right.
And they're focusing on tech now too. It was auto industry. Now they're really focused on those big tech companies and opening up offices and employing people in.
Yeah, we definitely saw a decline. Birmingham, there's a rocky past, obviously. We're all in the know of that. So we've seen Birmingham kind of do this just through the last century. It's never been known for one of the it cities. And so from like 2000 to 2010, we saw a pretty big decrease in population. A lot of that was because of crime. And then the city just completely revamped the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is downtown. It's the second largest employer in the state. Focused more on the entertainment, providing some diverse like culture options in downtown, focusing on tech. The large shift is local. Target just purchased it for $550 billion. We've got, obviously, of course, Jesse's showing the brewing company that
like to drink.
Became legal in Alabama. So that's been on a pretty big boom as well. So the city and the state really put a lot of emphasis on growing the economy, and we've seen that propel. So we were kind of positioned really well back in 2011 and 2012 to see the progress and kind of take advantage and go ahead and be boots on ground in real estate here locally. And like you said, we've seen it just blow up in Huntsville, thousands and thousands of jobs. Property taxes too. Property taxes are almost a joke in Alabama. Just comparatively speaking, when you look at other pro formas from when you're comparing property tax rates, it's laughable. We did get one question that I think is really good, and it's kind of talking about when you're purchasing properties and when you figured out your why, that you want to do this. A lot of the logistical questions can kind of get muddied. So what would you say as far as like the differences in purchasing in an LLC? Does that matter?
So you can purchase in an LLC, but usually you have to buy cash. So there's two ways. Let me just say it this way, right? There's always a way to get what you want. You just have to find the person who's going to say yes and avoid the people that say no, because you'll find a lot of no's. But here's a legal way to do things, right? If you want to purchase directly in an LLC. And the reason that you want to do that is because you want to protect your assets from anybody taking things away from you, because we are in a litigious, the United States is a litigious country, which I think there's more lawyers than any other people employed in the world. They happen to reside here in the United States, and they're looking for a case for anything. So you want to make it really, really hard for someone to find, if they want to sue you, you want to make it really hard for them to find out what you own. So you have to kind of have layers, right? Never put your name, never use your own personal name in an LLC. Don't name your LLC your name, okay? Right? Because here's what happens. Someone does a little search and they go, oh, Lindsay Davis. Oh, she has an LLC. Let's go see the contents of her LLC. Oh, she's got $3 million in real estate. We're going to pursue that case, right? Whereas you want the LLC for levels of protection. You don't name it in your own name. It's a way you can write off from some expenses to reduce your income or reduce your taxable income through your business expenses. You have to be legitimate, right? You, if you are running an LLC, let's say, well, let me just tell you the rules. The rules are from the IRS is that if you are considered, if you're going to file as a professional real estate investor, you have to have two things. Number one, you have to own at least 2 investment properties. Number 2, you have to document 750 hours in your real estate business. Now, if you're working a full-time job, kind of documenting 16 hours a week is going to be hard for you to do that, right? So if you've got a spouse or someone that's a stay-at-home, that works perfect, right? Because then you can legitimately document those hours because that's perceivably doable in the IRS's eyes. So the question I know though is, do you purchase in an LLC right out front or not? And are there benefits? So here's the deal. If you're going to use bank financing, Mr. Banker is very nervous and he does not like it lending money to an LLC. He loves lending to a personal name that he can hold accountable to the debt service, right? So here's what you do. You use bank leverage. You buy in your personal name, you close in your personal name. After 45 days, you then quit claim deed and transfer the property into your LLC. That's how you do it legally and legitimately. If you are not using bank financing, the other way you do it, you can actually just title it in your LLC directly, right? Because you have no responsibility to a banker who's worried about you paying the note.
So in the other part of that, and I can take this one and it says, and since Alabama is a landlord-friendly state, is there any difference between how the law treats those with their properties in LLCs and personally held? And the answer is no. Alabama is a very landlord-friendly state, but there is no difference as to the ownership of the single-family home. You know, none of the requirements, like if your property is in eviction, none of the ownership of the property is taken into consideration when it's time to essentially press charges against the current resident. So that's all the questions that I've got. Maureen, did you want to add anything else in regards to Alabama or real estate, kind of in our back to basics SIPs today? Did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple of things because, you know, when in preparation for this call, even when I was checking my inbox before we started, this popped up and I have to show you guys. Usually I'm like, I've got things committed to memory, but this I actually just got. So I'm going to show it to you here. So this was published in the Birmingham Business Journal, February 24th, 2021. If you guys can read it, it says, Birmingham, I'm reading this backwards. Birmingham ranks among top metros for economic recovery, right? So when you ask me why Birmingham, I didn't get to that. I didn't get to this, but essentially it was, here are some of the standpoints, right? So it said, Birmingham was among the stronger performers in all but one metric and ranked in the top 10 in several among large metros. And here, the only metric where Birmingham was below average was home price appreciation, with prices in Birmingham rising 4.5%. You mentioned 2 to 3%, which has been historic, right? But now we're at 4.5%. So going in the right direction. 4.5% on a $100,000 house in the last 12 months is the equivalent of $4,500. $4,500 divided by 20,000 gives you a 22.5% rate of return on your property. So still good, people, still good. Okay. In other categories where it said Birmingham was a standpoint, job growth, Birmingham's year-over-year loss of 2.5% was sixth best among large metros. Change in jobless rate, Birmingham's year-over-year change of 1.7 percentage points was sixth best. And the overall rate in Birmingham is the best in the nation among large metros. Work trips, Birmingham's 27.5% decline is 10th best in the nation. That speaks to, we're not a Las Vegas. You're not coming to watch shows and have crazy dinners by Wolfgang Puck, right? So we weren't hurt by the hospitality industry. It didn't hurt us because we're banking, financing, shipping, trucking, warehousing, logistics, distribution, government contracts, aerospace engineering technology. And you want that diversity to protect your capital. And then small business hours, Birmingham's 20.3% decline ranked fifth among the largest, among large metros. So if you look at it, it says Birmingham's high rankings represent a notable departure from the Magic City's slow recovery after the Great Recession, when it took until 2019 for Birmingham employment to return to its pre-recession peak. It's one of the slowest rates among major metros and well behind most of the region's southeastern peers. And I know if you look at, you're talking about unemployment rate, I think the US is 6.6 and we're at
4.4.
4.4. Okay, so we're even below,
Yep.
and that speaks to our governor keeping businesses open during COVID. And you could probably speak to that a little bit.
Right, and that's one thing, you know, we've kind of already talked a little bit about Alabama's economy in general, in that, you know, Governor Ivey, I think she handled an impossible situation very well, because COVID is just kind of one of those. It's like there's so many different opinions, and what do you do? What's right? Lives versus livelihood. A lot of debate. You know, outside of all of that, I do feel like, you know, hey, we've been on lockdown. Spartan has been on lockdown. We wear masks in the office. So we are taking proper precautions. We've seen our cases decline, yet when COVID first came out and a lot of other states' economies were really, really hurting, you know, Alabama, we kind of joke about it, but we're usually in the last in a lot of lists. But we were one of the very last, we were as far as affected. And the states, I think we were 48th on the state's economies that were least affected by COVID. We were at the very bottom. So we were really, really happy to finally be at the bottom of a good list. You know, and so we'll take it. But yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why Alabama, you know, we've been here for 10 years. So we could go on and on about why Alabama, but yeah, Maureen, thank you so much for sharing that. I've got, let's see. I got one last question. So we've got, any word on how the market in Huntsville will be affected with the announcement of the military moving Space Command to Huntsville? Any changes with our strategy to that announcement? I'd like to say that we're a fortune teller and we went ahead and went into Huntsville because of that, or because we went ahead and ramped up our team in Huntsville because we saw that coming, but that would be a lie. We did do all of those things, but not because of that, because there is so much else going on in Huntsville as well. We've got a Google Facebook data center, Toyota, Mazda, like she said, bringing thousands and thousands of jobs to the Huntsville market. So we had already ramped up our team there to continue to acquire and renovate. It's a great market. And we do foresee it just continuing to grow. You know, they're stating that Huntsville should be the most populated city in Alabama within the next 5 to 6 years. So it's going to surpass Birmingham pretty quickly. That's what's projected right now. So we are ramping up in Huntsville as well, getting a bigger team there to handle the demand from our investors to get in kind of a little bit more on the ground floor of a great market. And we're going to see the potential appreciation a little bit more in Huntsville than we are in Birmingham. Birmingham is more stable. It's been around longer. The economy is just as diverse. But yeah, so we were very excited about that announcement. Wish we could say that we predicted it, but we did not.
What we do know is that in the last 12 months, this is according to Zillow's home prices and values, and I checked it. I kind of fact checked it against some of the properties that we have. And in the last 12 months, that Huntsville capital appreciation comes in at 8.9%. I know. And the average time one of our biggest challenges, I love Graydon, thanks for the question. One of our biggest challenges is having enough Huntsville properties available for the significant, enormous demand that we have on this market. And I will tell you that we will list a Huntsville property on our Shopify site, and the average time that it's on the site is less than 7 minutes. So it just goes to show you that there's a very keen awareness of the tremendous amount of growth that's taking place in Huntsville. And I do believe that it will be a larger MSA. It will be the largest MSA in all of the state of Alabama. And we've already been there for 2 years. We've established relationships. We just had to hire more people because the demand has increased significantly because of all the headlines, with the Google, Facebook, with the Toyota Mazda, with the US Space Command Center, and the FBI relocating there. So, it really comes down to this. I've learned this in 13 years, and I'm not an economist, but I'm someone that's been on the real estate side, single family for a long time. And it's pretty basic. You go, if you create jobs, it brings people. So you have job growth, creates population growth. And then those people that live there, they're going to spend money locally in the economy. And as that population grows, the housing demand grows. So it's really simple. Create jobs, see the population grow, see the housing demand increase. And we just happen to be in that area where the housing the housing demand is high for owner occupants as well as for investors, because not everybody can afford to buy. And so we service that community that needs a really nice place to live in really quality, safe neighborhoods for reasonable prices.
Yeah. All right. So sorry, we got 1 minute left. Maureen,
Okay.
Wrap us up with like one of your favorite. Pick your favorite real estate quote. You gave me 3 the other day. Give me your favorites.
Okay, so here's one of my favorites. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait, because when you do that, you get that appreciation piece of it. I know you've got one too. Don't you?
Oh wow! No? Wow. Put me on the spot. Best time to buy real estate was yesterday.
Boom. You can tell guys you're really passionate.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you again. We will see you next month. Visit our website, SpartanInvest.com, to submit any topics that you want to hear about or any questions that you want us to answer. Thanks, guys.